Good evening, friends, and welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. We are retired New York City police detectives and 9/11 World Trade Center first responders. If you like all things true crime related from that police detective's perspective, you're in the right spot. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you get all things DutyRon and my partner here, Ed Wallace, when we go live or upload another video. Hey, tonight we're going to go over the Karen Read trial, day 16. Today was interesting because we heard from our scientists from the forensic lab of the Massachusetts State Police, and we had the medical examiner. She really took up a great deal of the day. There was so much conversation about John O'Keefe's autopsy. She went over it in details. Some of the jurors needed a break. There was gasps heard from the jurors box. Ed, I know it's been a busy day with forensics. You've been watching every ounce of this. Your thoughts on today, and was it a win for the prosecution or a win for the defense?
I got to say it was a win for the defense. The prosecution brought on the medical examiner, and in some aspects of his direct testimony of her, kind of treated her like a hostile witness. And it was kind of weird because he brought her in, because originally, there was talk that he wasn't going to bring her in. But it didn't fare well for him, because the things she said, really, in my opinion, I always say follow the science. I know other people are saying that, but I'm the one that's actually doing it. She basically drove a nail in this coffin, saying, hey, I found no evidence of a motor vehicle accident. Okay. And her testimony, she was able to say that the injuries to the face could be a punch. Okay. Right. But you'll see for yourself. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you watch the entire testimony of the medical examiner. So in my opinion, from the forensics, and I'm sure when the defense case comes on, they're going to bolster what this medical examiner said. I think, they just proved medically that he does not have the injuries consistent with being hit by a motor vehicle.
Yeah, and it was clear and apparent from the testimony today. The medical examiner, again, was being treated, like you said, as almost like a hostile witness by Mr. Brennan, and he's the one who brought her on. What was interesting about this, Ed, is when I was taking some notes from my from my watch back, because I was working all day. It was really busy. I managed to sneak in a Kohlberger pre-trial hearing. I actually set that thing to live and walked away from the computer. But she started out in the New York City medical examiner's office. When she said that, I was surprised. And now I'm sure she just came out in trial number 1. But she said that she started out in 2008, and then she went to New York City Mount Sinai Hospital. But when she said she worked at the office of the chief medical examiner's office, I thought of you. And isn't that somewhere around that time that you were working in the DNA forensic lab in the medical examiner's office, Ed?
I don't remember if she gave a time that she was there, a year. I was there from 2008 to 2014.
Right. So she began her career in 2008, but it started in New York City. She did a fellowship at Mount Sinai, she said, or former Mount Sinai Medical Center. But she definitely said that she worked at the
Yes, I heard that. Yes, that she worked at the New York City Office of Chief Medical Examiner.
Let's listen to a little recap, and then we'll jump right into it. We'll start with obviously the state scientist that they brought back. That was Miss Harnett. We'll listen to some of her testimony. I know you got a lot to say about that because that was interesting as well. But let's listen to a little recap.
Tonight, exploring the cause and manner of John O'Keefe's death.
I did not see any evidence of an impact site.
A medical examiner goes over her findings.
In your autopsy report, did not determine the cause of those wounds to Mr. O'Keefe's right arm.
That's correct.
what she believes ended the officer's life. Plus, an update on the buffer zone around the courthouse. Details on the new ruling that impacts trial watchers. Canton Confidential, the Karen Reed murder trial, starts right now.
It was a difficult day for the jury. The group was faced with the most graphic evidence yet. Good evening, everyone. I'm JC Monahan.
And I'm Glenn Jones. A medical examiner was brought in to focus on John O'Keefe and the autopsy performed after his death. Our Melanie Mendez joins us now live outside Norfolk Superior Court with more on today's testimony. Mel.
Well, Glenn and JC, you put it perfectly. This was really the most graphic evidence these jurors have seen yet, and we saw evidence of that in court. But before the medical examiner even showed these autopsy photos of John O'Keefe, the judge stopped to give the jury some instructions. Listen.
Your verdict must not in any way be influenced by the fact that these photographs may be unpleasant or graphic. The defendant is entitled to a verdict based solely on the evidence and not based on pity or sympathy for Mr. O'Keefe.
And with those instructions began a graphic day in court. The jury shown autopsy photos with medical examiner Dr. Irini Scordi-Bello detailing the injuries, including a laceration to the back of his head and skull fractures.
The cause of death was determined to be blunt impact injuries of head and hypothermia.
But the manner of death, how those injuries happened, she could not conclude. On cross-examination, there was a renewed focus on the involvement of former trooper Michael Proctor. Scordi-Bello said before she performed the autopsy, investigators told her that O'Keefe's death involved a possible person struck by a motor vehicle.
I tried to state the injuries, and then I use all kinds of other investigative information.
Attorney Bob Alessi trying to show the importance of that investigative information provided by Michael Proctor and noting the medical examiner wasn't given any other possible scenarios.
Did you consider whether Mr. O'Keefe could have died somewhere other than where the body was found and been moved and placed in the snow? Did you consider that?
Alessi then asking about grass, the absence of it, setting up his argument that O'Keefe didn't fall on the lawn.
Assuming a fall backwards onto frozen ground and there being on a lawn with grass, would you expect to see any grass at all in the injury site?
It's possible to have grass.
Do you see any evidence of grass in this depiction?
No, I do not.
In what could be a pivotal moment in the case, the doctor was asked if she examined O'Keefe's body for any signs of collision with a vehicle, the prosecution's theory.
I did examine his lower extremities. That is protocol in any case of suspected impact with a motor vehicle. What I look for is some sort of bruise either on the outside of the leg or bleeding on the inside or any fracture of the bones of the legs. I did not observe those things.
Now, look, when the doctor was asked about the laceration above John O'Keefe's eye, the defense specifically asked, could that be evidence of a fight? That is, of course, their theory of the crime, to which he said, yes, it could be consistent with a punch. But just moments later, then we saw prosecutor Hank Brennan stand up, and on redirect, he asked about his theory of the crime, basically saying, could those same injuries have been caused by shards of glass or shards of sharp plastic? To which the doctor said, yes, potentially. So both of them having their theories somewhat confirmed by the medical examiner. Glenn and JC, back to you.
Melody, thank you. And we want to go more into...
So, Ed, I want to ask you, could we switch gears here? I know you wanted to start with the state scientists, but I think this is more important for us to start with this. If you don't mind, Ed, could we start with our conversation about the forensics here as it pertains to the medical examiner? You had a thought, and I hate to interrupt it, so go with that.
Well, that wasn't very accurate at the end with the reporter. The medical examiner actually said after Brennan asked a series of hypotheticals about the injuries to the face, he says, anything is possible, sir, okay, with the injuries to the face, because he started, could it be a glass? Could it be shards of plastic from the vehicle and so forth? And but typically with those things, then there would be other evidence of that, because we're talking about lacerations, okay, and that's typically associated with blunt force trauma style attacks. So you could hit in the face with a glass, like that broken glass that was found outside next to by Mr. Leaf Blower. Yeah, okay. So where do you want to go, Ron?
Well, I thought it was important because of your background and everything. They explain the cause, the different manners of death, the different mechanisms. And I know this is right up your alley, but I wrote them down so this way for folks who are watching on the replay here live in the chat, there's 5 manners of death that could be designated by a medical examiner. Correct, Ed?
Yeah. Well, there is natural, there's accidental,
homicide.
There's homicide, there's suicide, and there's undetermined pending investigation.
Which we have right here with Police Officer John O'Keefe. Undetermined, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So,
and she wouldn't budge. She wouldn't budge. During the redirect, Brennan tried to say, "Well, did you know this? Were you made aware of this before you made your death certificate? Were you made aware of this statement? Were you made aware of that statement?" And she would say yes or no to the various statements, but she had the gist of it, where witnesses were allegedly saying that Miss Reed was saying, "I hit him, I hit him, I hit him," so forth and so on, and she would not budge and change her manner of death from causes undetermined pending investigation. So she kept it a copy, and that's that. Hey, I need to step away for a second.
All right, no problem. Go ahead, Ed. Okay. Step away. I got you. All right. So, again, I thought it was important for us to start out with the medical examiner's testimony because it was the most important. But what I gleaned from listening back to the doctor, I'm gonna have a hard time. Scordi-Bello, Dr. Scordi-Bello's. I always mess up people's names, especially when it's a little tricky like that. But Dr. Scordi-Bello's, she testified very well, and people were making fun of her because she was closing her eyes. Some people just do that. She knew her stuff, and she really didn't turn out to be a good witness for the Commonwealth, and I think it backfired on him. But let's listen to a little cross-examination of Dr. Scordi-Bello. Defense attorney Alyssa, he is a gentleman. He's doing a great job. And I also want to say, I want to put myself back on just for a second. I also want to say that Ed's chair is empty. That's sad. I'll put him back on as soon as he comes back. But I also want to say that, we respect both sides. If you feel that Karen Reed is guilty, we're always open to hear why you feel she is guilty, not guilty, or guilty. So both sides of this thing is what we want to have: open discourse, conversation. Do it respectfully. Don't need to attack each other. There's many people who feel she's not guilty. There's many people that feel that she is guilty. But the science doesn't lie. And as Ed always says, when you have the totality of all this evidence and you have these people who are testifying as witnesses, the homeowners not coming out, the chief of detectives who lived across the street not coming out, the leaf blowers, the solo cups, the stop and shop bags, the everything, Trooper Proctor involved in this thing, Higgins, the Alberts, Jennifer McCabe, and all of the shadiness in the testimony and the way that these people are conducting themselves. It doesn't take much but common sense to figure it out. But it's all good. I mean, again, I respect everyone's opinion.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Scordi-Bello, are you aware of an attorney named, or excuse me, a doctor named Zeke Wolf?
No, I'm not.
Now I'd like to move on to another category. Based on the information that was presented to you as part of your examination and analysis, is it correct that you presume that because Mr. O'Keefe's body was found in the snow and his body temperature was 80 degrees, that he died from hypothermia as one of the causes?
I reached that conclusion after performing the autopsy and after seeing some findings that were consistent with hypothermia, and then combined with the information that was provided to me about Mr. O'Keefe's body being found in the snow, I came to the conclusion that was one of the things that contributed.
Did you consider whether there may have been other reasons as to why his body reached that temperature of 80 degrees? Sort of applying the scientific method and seeing if there were other reasons?
Other than being out in the snow? No, I do not.
Do you know whether there are other alternative reasons how his body could reach the temperature of 80 degrees?
People can become hypothermic for other reasons, such as sepsis. But in this particular case, I didn't have any reason to believe that that was part of the circumstances.
You're familiar with the medical phrase differential diagnosis, correct?
Yes.
And a differential diagnosis is a term that's used by doctors to pursue other potential causes of a medical injury. Is that a fair general statement?
Yes.
So, for example, if somebody is having difficulty breathing, a doctor may say, I think it's the heart is their primary hypothesis, but they may want to differentially diagnose this and look at the lungs. Is that an example of a differential diagnosis that let's look at the lungs to see if that may be the problem? Is that a good, fair example?
In the example you're giving, yes.
So applying that concept, and do you believe the concept of, well, applying that concept to this situation, did you perform a differential diagnosis as to the cause of the death and question whether there was hypothermia as any cause of the death of the deceased? Did you make that analysis?
I looked at the anatomic findings that I had at the time of autopsy, the information that was provided to me based on the circumstances and where the body was found. And I came to the conclusion that there were hypothermic changes in Mr. O'Keefe's body.
So you just used the phrase hypothermic changes. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Can there be hypothermic changes without a cause of death being hypothermia?
Yes, of course.
So you can have signs in the body of hypothermia, but you can also conclude that a cause of death is not from hypothermia, correct?
If the person is deceased and I am examining the body and there are multiple things that I believe contribute to the death, then I tend to include all of them. Meaning that if this was a drug intoxication and the body also showed signs of hypothermia, I would include both of them on the death.
I'm going to just stop this just for a second because Johnny Rep said something really interesting. The Commonwealth has to prove what happened. They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Karen Reed did hit John O'Keefe with her car and cause his death. The defense only has to bring up doubt, and they've more than done that. They've brought up a mile-high pile of doubt, and that's a fact. That there's no sidestepping that. There's no trying to sugarcoat that. The defense has already, thus far in day 16, up to day 16, has brought in a mountain of doubt. Ed?
Yeah, I mean, he did a masterful job with this hypothermia here. By the end of his cross-examination with the doctor and going over his alcohol level, his, that he's, he drinks a lot, and that he was taking, for all intents and Pepsid, and that these ulcers that were in his stomach and other organs, that a lot of that can be associated with the heavy drinking in terms of the stomach. And in addition, that, the normal person that dies of hypothermia that has these ulcers in the stomach, it's usually more than 50% of the stomach lining has these ulcers, where he only had about 10 to 15%. So he did a masterful job with that. But then, he was asked if there was any frostbite. No frostbite. Okay. But in her grand jury testimony, we'd find out that she did speak about John O'Keefe in the initial information she received from Proctor, that was alleged that John O'Keefe went up into the house for a party, and there was an altercation and a fight. That's what was written down on the intake form from the trooper that called that information into the medical examiners initially. Okay. And then also in the grand jury, she was also asked questions about whether those signs of hypothermia could have been because of the change in temperature between the body initially being, inside the house and then brought outside the house. And that was also in her grand jury testimony. And that came out initially. The defense tried to bring it out, but they weren't as successful. But on redirect, Brennan brought it out. Okay.
Right. He did himself, right? He did himself. Yeah. And we're going to get to hear that. But let's listen to a little bit more. There's a tsunami of doubt. But somebody brought up, and I forgot the name. It was, I think, Letteros Better. They brought up that there was a mountain and a tsunami of doubt in trial number one, but we don't have the same jury.
Also, they may have impeached Keefe's testimony about who was at the autopsy, because apparently the sign-in log, and they had photographs of two troopers, Keefe and another trooper who was carrying a camera. Right. So there were actually two troopers there, and again, they were departing information to the medical examiner at the time of the autopsy, giving their quote unquote theory, which hypothesis, and what she was looking at wasn't in her mind jiving with what they're telling her. And in addition to that, they never brought her any photographs of the clothing that they recovered at the hospital. By that time, they had the clothing. They should have brought photographs of the clothing so she could see the damage to the shirt and compare it to what she was seeing on the damage of the arm, sans clothing. So they didn't do that, and they really should have.
That's commonly done in New York City and in other areas. It doesn't take much to do. You take your photos, you bring it over. True crime, the True Crime Queen 66 says, and many others, where are John O'Keefe's socks? It's driving me crazy. We saw one in the autopsy photos today that they showed she had two in the hospital. Yeah, he had two in the hospital. There was one on him in the autopsy suite. I homed in on that when I was scanning through the testimony this evening. There was one black sock, I think, on his right foot, and the other one didn't have a sock. And people are concerned about the belt. Where's the belt? Again, we saw that in evidence yesterday, trial day 15. Right, Ed? We were talking about the belt and the blood on the belt. So let's let a little bit more of this play. And at any time you want me to stop, just yell. Okay.
Certificate.
Your mic is working great, by the way.
There is no scientific way of teasing out whether it was just one or the other or both. In this particular case, I had two processes that were going on. One was the head trauma, and the other one were these hypothermic changes. I put all that together, and again, included or took into account the investigative information of where the body was found, what the temperature was when the body was found, whether the person was still alive or not. And I came to the conclusion that the cause of death was blunt impact injuries of head. And I included the hypothermia because I saw during the autopsy that there were changes consistent with hypothermia.
So I want to break that down a little bit if I could.
Okay.
So you testified on the
All right, because she's going to get deep into the lining of the stomach, and she's going to talk about these ulcers that are associated with hypothermia. But as I told you earlier, so we don't have to waste much time on this, that those ulcers are also made by heavy alcoholic drinking. Okay, and that's why he was taking the Pepsid. I think it was a prescription Pepsid. I'm not sure if it was over the counter.
Almost. I have it upstairs. We take it with our World Trade Center.
Yeah, I have it too.
Bucks in the girth.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean,
it's a proton pump inhibitor.
Right.
So that's what it is for those. It stops the acid from producing in the stomach. Okay. But she stuck to her guns. If we can maybe fast forward it to a little of the towards the end of the defense redirect.
Yeah, I want to get to the full video. That one was just a short clip from Law and Crime. But also too,
That's it, Julie. Julie she put the medication up. Yes, Julie, that's it.
Yeah, that Dr. Ed Moskowitz's wife, Julie, there it is. She's got it. She's a nurse. She's a PA, so she knows the deal. And look, again, I thought it was important that they went over these fine details. A lot of people were like, well, what does this got to do with this? Why does this? It had a lot to do with what the discussion was today. And, I think that towards the end of this, I noticed that the doctor got a little defensive. She was actually getting annoyed, it seemed like, because I mean, it was just my take from it. I scanned through it quickly. Did you get that from her, Ed, or no? Was she just going through the motions and doing her thing? I mean, because she's testified many a times.
Well, I mean, she's her testimony style is very matter of fact. Okay,
yes.
It's just the facts kind of, dragnet type thing. Yeah, Yuma, they said Pepsid on the stand, both the medical examiner and the defense attorney, but I was thinking Nexium. Okay, so I mean, I know that drug in my taking of that drug to be Nexium, but they were calling it Pepsid.
Ed, did you find it interesting that I believe the defense brought up the photographs of Trooper Proctor and another trooper in the autopsy suite? I want to put that up on the screen here.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So she couldn't remember who these guys were, but let's take a listen to this.
Our office providing information was that this was a possible person struck by a motor vehicle.
And the time of the autopsy, if I have it correctly, was that around the end of January of 2022?
The autopsy was January 31st.
Your Honor, if I could, with your permission, please publish a photograph which Your Honor has and the parties have stipulated, or that's in evidence. And this is the one.
Yeah, the other trooper was Connor Keith.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we will mark this as the next exhibit. There's no objections, Brennan?
No objection.
Okay, so we'll mark it first and then you can display it.
Thank you, Mark.
Exhibit 100.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Scordi-Bello, if I can hand that to you, please.
you could take a look at it, and when you've had a fair opportunity to look at it, you can just look back up, and I'll proceed at that time.
Yes, I recognize the picture. Well, I've never seen this picture before, but I know what it's depicting.
Thank you. What is depicted in that picture?
It's a picture of two individuals standing in a morgue setting, which looks very similar to our morgue at the Cape Cod office.
And remember, Ed, in the beginning, that was a good eyeglass flip there. In the beginning, when the prosecutor started opening with her, the Commonwealth, they started with her. She said there was two individuals that attended the autopsy in the autopsy suite, but she wasn't able to identify by name who they were. And then I think they asked her on cross if there was any notes. Is it common that in autopsy suites, medical examiners, they keep a log book of everybody that attends?
Oh yeah.
So
yeah. You have to sign in to the morgue.
Yeah.
And so they had the log. Apparently, the prosecutors had the log, but it didn't appear that the defense had the log. But the prosecutors brought it up, and she saw it, and she read the names. But I think she might have gotten the names mixed up, because she said there's a Mr. Keefe and a Mr. Connors. Well, Mr. Connor is the first name of Keefe. So I'm not sure if that came out correctly, but we know now from the photo there were at least two troopers. One was a photographer, had a camera in hand, and maybe it's from the CSS team. I'm not sure, but still, they should have been identified.
Yeah. All right.
Very good. If you could just hold that for a moment, and with the court's permission, could I publish that for the jury?
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Wolf? And if you could please zoom in on the two individuals in that picture.
I think what's most important here is that this bald trooper is Michael Proctor, and they want to point out that the disgraced, corrupt trooper, Michael Proctor, who was fired from the Massachusetts State Police, who is the lead detective, as they call it now. You know, they home in on this case detective. He's the case detective. Okay.
Is that Proctor?
I believe it is.
Yeah, because she didn't say his name. Like she said, she said a Mr. Keefe and a Mr. Connors. So that's why I said she must have got that wrong, because his name is Connor Keefe.
Yeah.
That might be Proctor.
Wouldn't the lead detective be in the autopsy suite for he's the lead detective on the case? Why would two other Massachusetts state troopers be there and not the lead detective? It just...
Right. Well, I mean, then that should have been brought out in that, in fact, that this individual here with the bald head is in fact Proctor, but it never came out in the testimony today.
And he has booties on, and he doesn't. He's wearing his shoes on the autopsy floor. I mean, I've never gone into Kings County, any of the various county coroner's office in the 5 boroughs without totally. I actually tie back up when I would go in there. Mm-hmm. So I didn't feel comfortable just hanging around with my clothing and you lean up or brush up against something. But this appears to be Proctor to me, and a lot of people are saying it is. Really, why would the lead detective not be sitting in on the autopsy of his case? Just doesn't.
Somebody else is saying it's Brian Tully. I have no idea who it is, but it should have been identified who this individual is. The prosecutor should know who this individual is, and it should have came out in the testimony today. If they have the sign-in log at the medical examiner's office, they should have entered it into evidence and said who it was.
Dr. Scordi-Bello, do you recognize any of the individuals in that picture?
To be perfectly honest, no, I don't.
With regard to the person on the right, do you recognize that person?
No, I don't.
And you said you recognize the setting, correct?
Yes.
And if I heard you correctly, you said...
Ed, you see how everybody's perception is different? Hey,
yeah, they're saying they're both bald, so it could be Proctor, it could be Tully.
This guy's not bald.
No, the guy to the right.
Yeah, there's one guy that's bald and one that's not.
Right. Keith wasn't bald.
Okay.
This is the Cape Cod facility?
It appears to be correct.
Right. So you testified earlier, if I recall correctly, that the autopsy was performed at the Cape Cod facility of the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner.
Yes, it was.
And you're normally in, as I recall, the Westfield, in an office that covers Western Massachusetts in Westfield.
Correct.
But you were at the Cape Cod facility, as I understand it, because there was a staff shortage and you had to travel down to Cape Cod for this. Is this correct?
Correct.
So you weren't at your normal home base sort of facility. This is a facility that you went to for this autopsy, correct?
For this autopsy and multiple others, yes.
Yes. And you were covering a staff shortage, and that was the reason you went to Cape Cod, correct?
Correct.
Ed, was there anything before
And
this that you were
what's the-
interested in? Like I'm going back here. Was anything prior to this that was of interest?
No, I want to get to the testimony of the being punched. That would be towards the end of the defense cross, not recross.
Where gastric is sort of synonymous with the stomach,
Stomach.
and then
No,
the pancreas.
That's too far. To the left. Let's see where she is here.
It's quite possible to have an injury as the one depicted.
Go back just a little bit,
There's
right there.
nothing inconsistent with this injury and a fall.
Horizontal line that is to what? Dr. Scordi-Bello, if you could please draw your attention to what is depicted on both screens, pick whatever screen is most convenient for you. And what I want to do is to go over what is depicted there. And I'd like to start with just some basics. What is that white rectangle
I
that?
want to just put this to bed about who that was. If I had a guess, and I'm going based off of experience, the lead detective, the case detective, is going to be in on the autopsy. There's no way that he's not. So that has to be Trooper Proctor, former disgraced Trooper Proctor, in my eyes.
Photograph.
I have no idea, but I'm thinking the defense thinks it's Proctor, and I'm thinking now during the direct testimony and cross-examination of Keith, we might have an issue here now.
This,
Yes.
that's a ruler.
And what's the purpose of the ruler?
To show a scale. When I measure the injury, I use the ruler to document that.
And if you could please draw your further attention to what I will refer to, and you use your own term, but just to start it, the horizontal line that is appears to be a laceration. You
Stay safe,
know what I'm
Emily.
referring to?
This, yes, it's a laceration.
Right. So it's fair to say that that's a laceration.
Correct.
And just so we get all that's depicted on this, you referred to earlier up above that, the red area. Is that an abrasion?
Yes.
And do you also denote to the left, almost like a J type item going vertically up? Yes, and going up. Do you see that?
Yeah, that I did not note that specifically. I just noted the whole injury as part of the abrasion.
That's my point. So you didn't make a separate note of what appears to be a J, and it might be easier to see it in the screen over there. It's your conclusion, but is it easier to see there?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, and so you didn't make a separate note as to what that was in your report, correct?
No, I did not.
Do you consider that an abrasion or something else?
I believe that's still an abrasion.
This is all very
Do
important.
you conclude that J is different in any manner from the abrasion that you've noted above the laceration?
I believe it could be part of the whole abrasion, or it could be something different.
Fair enough. Would a fall backwards on a flat frozen ground produce a circular and not a linear abrasion as depicted here on the back of an injured person's head?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Assume a fall backwards on a flat frozen ground. Would such a fall and impact present that type of pattern, or would it present a circular pattern, perhaps with something like a starfish in the middle?
I'll allow that. Can you answer that?
I can say that a fall backwards could very well produce that injury.
My question is more specific, and that is a fall backwards where the person impacts the back of their head on flat frozen ground. Would you expect that type of a laceration from that type of a fall? Not just a general fall backwards, but specifically a fall backwards where the back of the head hits flat frozen ground. Would you expect that?
I could, yes.
And under what circumstances could a laceration like that and an abrasion, all of it together, what circumstances could cause that type from a fall backwards on flat frozen ground?
Well, the laceration is due to the blunt impact, and so is the abrasion. The abrasion is friction. So depending on the type of surface, you mentioned flat frozen ground, it's quite possible to have an injury as the one depicted. There's nothing inconsistent with this injury and a fall on someone's on the back of the head with a blunt surface.
Are you familiar with the phrase pattern recognition in medicine?
Yes.
And isn't pattern recognition something that requires training with regard to being able to recognize certain patterns and determining what could be causing that pattern?
Yes.
And just merely recognizing whether there is a pattern takes certain specialty training, etc.
Correct.
And isn't pattern recognition a principle that you apply in the medical examiner's office?
Yeah, we do.
And so example of pattern recognition could be a knife wound, correct?
Yes.
Could be a gunshot.
Correct.
And there are certain patterns that you see on a decedent that can be consistent with those types of causes of injury, correct?
Correct.
Ron, can we stop it?
Yep.
So I think where we're going here, folks, is that he's got a pattern recognition expert that's in the queue to come testify for the defense. And what I'm thinking is he's going to try to use this pattern recognition expert, this doctor, to suggest that the wound to the back of the head was from a blunt force instrument, not just falling back and hitting his head on the frozen grass of the front yard. I don't know. It could be a dumbbell from the gym. It could be the glass tumbler that was broken and found outside along the body, something to that effect. I think that's what he was doing with her here, trying to establish that there are experts in a medical field of pattern recognition. So I think we're going to see on the defense case there when they bring that in.
Yeah. I also think that the Commonwealth in very short time is going to bring in a accident reconstruction reconstructionist.
Mm-hmm.
Last trial, I think it was a colossal fail, right? Between Trooper Paul and others. But
Yes.
we'll
Bringing in, there was a hearing at the end of the trial today. It seems that the defense made a discovery, a failure for discovery motion, or I forgot what the number is, 14 violation, as they call it, or something like that.
Rule 14.
And yeah, Rule 14 violation, that the prosecution's accident reconstructionist just changed the timeline and then updated their PowerPoint presentation that they're supposedly going to be testifying shortly, either the end of this week or next week. And they just got their hands on it on the 11th of May. The report was written 8th of May, and it had to do with changing the time. And so they were arguing back and forth at the end of the trial today. So we don't know what the judge is going to rule here regarding allowing that to be entered. Yes.
Ed, I had one other note that I wanted to ask you, and I forgot to ask you this in the beginning. The doctor mentioned, they talked about skull fractures on the right side of the base of the skull, brain bleeding upon removal of the brain. Again, I think it's in line with the defense saying that he was, beaten, hit the back of his head, hit pavement or hit something in the basement, and was taken outside. But they also asked her if she saw any anything that was indicative of drag marks, and she said no, as it pertained to the clothing. And so she had access to that. She
didn't see the clothing.
So she didn't see the clothing. So how did she make? I have some notes here that I was writing down, and I believe that it came out today that there was no evidence of that he was dragged
On the skin, she didn't see anything on the skin that suggested that he was
from the state lab.
You're talking about the Crim 2?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, in her testimony, they didn't do any testing on those stains, the brown, green stains, or anything like that. I don't recall her testifying to having an opinion about dragging, but she did testify that, in fact, after the lab received those clothings, that Proctor took the two upper body clothing and took the pants and the underwear, and he put the two upper body articles of clothing in one bag, put the two lower body clothing in one bag. So he commingled even after it was already commingled at the hospital, which it should have never been done. Right. And, I told you, we can't control what happens to the clothing being commingled before we get there. But once it's done, you can separate it. There's no reason for you to continue the commingling. The damage is done. Just put it down in your notes that you found it this way, and then you separated it and packaged them individually. Well, in this case, they didn't do any of that. They just kept it all commingled. And then back at the laboratory, when she did her spatula scraping of the articles of clothing, she combined the scrapings from the hoodie with the scrapings of the T-shirt, and then packaged all of that up and put it to the side. And then she did the same thing with the pants and the underwear. Okay. And then packaged those scrapings up. Again, as I said yesterday, I wouldn't have done scrapings like that. I would have done individual vacuum canister collection. But first, I would have examined it with the alternate light source and infrared, looking for other trace transfer evidence, collect hairs and fibers with tape lifts. I wouldn't have done scraping like she did.
Look at this comment right down below. LA says the accident reconstructionist in trial 2 in this trial is a former trooper who trained Trooper Paul. Well, if he trained Trooper Paul, then he failed. He failed training 101 because Trooper Paul was awful. He was more cringe than Lieutenant Gallagher with the leaf blower and the Stop and Shop bags and the Solo cups.
And I don't know if everybody in the chat was following the trial today, but the Crim 2 was asked when she examined that taillight, was there any salt or or sand inside of the taillight housing? And she said no.
Hmm.
So there you have it.
Where do you want me to go? To the end of this?
Let's see the. I didn't get to the part of the punch. Did she talk about the punch?
No, we stopped it. You asked me to stop.
Assuming a fall backwards onto frozen ground, and there being on a lawn with grass, would you expect to see any grass at all in the injury site?
It's possible to have grass.
Is it possible to have well, are you familiar with the height and weight of the decedent generally? And if you need to look at your notes, please do so.
Yes. Mr. O'Keefe was approximately 6'1" and 216 pounds.
So assuming a fall backwards and an impact ahead on, a ground with grass, a person who's 6'1", there is going to be significant acceleration forces that occur as they're going backwards. Is that correct?
That's fair to say, yes.
And therefore, the more acceleration forces, usually there's a correlation with the force of the impact.
Correct.
And in terms of force of impact and assuming grass on the ground, would you believe it's more probable than not that one would then see some grass on the head?
Sustained is deathful.
Given what you tested,
Ed, we should count how many objections get sustained for the defense versus how many for the Commonwealth. I think it would be a lopsided number, that's for sure.
by regard to the height of Mr. O'Keefe, and assuming what I just gave to you as a fall backwards and acceleration and forces, would you expect to see anything else on the back of his head?
You have to be more specific than that.
Right. I thank you. So would you expect to see, is it possible, if that was the manner of the fall, that there should be grass on the head? Is that possible?
Sustained.
Did you consider at all in your evaluation let me back up. Do you see any evidence of grass in this depiction?
No, I do not.
Did you recall ever seeing any evidence of grass when you were performing the autopsy?
I did not see evidence of grass.
Did you consider at all in performing your autopsy whether or not grass should be present given what was reported to you by law enforcement?
Sustained.
Did you make any considerations at all regarding grass in regard to your autopsy report?
I did not see any grass. No, I did not make any determinations.
And was grass at all even a consideration in your analysis?
I had very limited information as to the exact nature of the surface at the time of autopsy.
So the answer is no to that
No.
question. Thank you. Did you have any information regarding the circumstances
These questions.
that you said you look at
Yes, I can. I can carry in all 50 states, and so can Ed.
in trying to determine manner of death as to whether there were any stones or rocks around the scene?
That I did not have any information.
So meaning you didn't have any information, you saw no information that there were any stones or rocks by the scene, is that correct?
Sustained in that form.
What, if any, consideration did you make in your assessment of cause and manner of death with regard to?
Ed, look who's in the chat.
Hey, great job, sir.
The End Trouble 31. Everybody go follow this guy. And not only that, we would love to have you on with us one night, maybe when we do like a Forensic Friday, and just do an hour of all the different tests that you've done. And, if you're into that, we would love to have you. Send me an email on DutyRon.com. We'd love to have you on, sir. You did a great job. We highlighted some of your work, and we asked everybody to go over and check out your show. So thank you from Ed and myself, right?
You got it.
Awesome.
Stones or rocks.
I did not make any.
With regard to any other potential causes other than ground, did you consider any other possibilities that could cause the type of injuries that are depicted on the screen?
There's a number of possibilities that could cause the injury.
My question is, did you consider, not whether there are, but whether you considered them at the time you were performing the autopsy?
I'm always considering at the time of autopsy what could have caused a certain injury.
Did you put in your notes or your autopsy report any of those considerations? Are they documented?
No.
Stop
Now, in
right there.
terms of differential
All right. Given what the troopers told her, she's very limited in what she considered to be the cause of that injury. So as she said, there could be any number of blunt force instruments or tools, objects that could have caused that injury other than hitting the ground. Okay. So again, reasonable doubt. Okay.
100%. 100%. Thank you to everybody for the super chats. We're going to go over all the super chats. So please, if you left us a super chat, stay till the end and we're going to go over them all, like this one here from Britt. We will answer these questions out as soon as we cover everything that we want to cover here.
diagnosis that we talked about, did you determine whether there were any other possible explanations for the injuries to the decedent other than what law enforcement presented to you?
I'll allow that.
Internally, I consider all kinds of other explanations. I have to look at the findings and the possible ways that those injuries could have been sustained and decide whether I have enough information and whether I am satisfied with the information that I have in order to conclude or determine a manner.
Did you make any notes at all about the considerations you were just speaking about, other considerations, any notes whatsoever in any document in your autopsy report?
Not in my autopsy report, no.
Did you make any other notes of those considerations in any document that you created for this case at all?
No, these are considerations that I've had and discussions I've had with colleagues in terms of evaluating these injuries. And
I don't want you to go into what other people said, but I want you to finish your answer.
Right, no, I did not make physical notes of my considerations.
Your Honor, I'm going into a different category, so I just wanted to alert Your Honor to it.
All right. And it will take more than 10, 15 minutes?
Oh, yes.
Okay. All right, jurors.
So with all of that, she wasn't satisfied with what she was told by the investigators to make a manner determination. Again, she doesn't see any of the signs that she would be looking for a vehicle impact. She then goes on to say that the injuries to the face were not consistent with falling on the back of your head, that it could be any number of things, from blunt force injuries from a punch to any numerous objects to a glass, or they use the term plastic, but it's polycarbonate, from the tail light. But those were blunt force trauma injuries, and I don't think flying shards of polycarbonate would cause those types of injuries.
Yeah, agreed. And I actually went and started looking into that and looking, doing some research. And you're right, Ed. This absolutely does not fit what the Commonwealth is presenting to this jury. Let's listen to the rest of this, and then I want to move on, because I want to try to not make it a 2.5-hour live stream, even though everybody in the chat, let us know if you love it when we go 2 hours plus. There's so many people that can listen to us all night long. but we kind of run out of gas after a little while. And I don't mean flatulence. We run out of gas. So let's let this play.
Jury proceeding. Dr. Scordi-Bello, and welcome back.
Thank you.
I want to move on to a slightly different aspect of the hypothermia discussion. So you've acknowledged previously that hypothermia is a very difficult diagnosis to make, correct?
Correct.
And you acknowledge that in your grand jury testimony in this proceeding, correct? Do you recall that?
I do.
And you indicated in that grand jury proceeding, generally that diagnosing hypothermia is based on contextual clues. Is that correct?
On autopsy findings and
Ron?
investigative information. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Do we really want to go with this? Because this is long and tedious and gets heavy into the medical. What do you say? I say, do you want us to fast forward this?
Well, this is the end of it. So there's only just this little bit left here, and then it's
Well,
over.
yeah, that's where there should be the recross
This is all I have. This is 5 hours and 13 minutes. So
there should be some recross here, because this is just her coming back from after they had their lunch. Okay.
yeah, I have part 3, which is the end.
No big deal. No big deal. So yeah, it was a long day, and a lot of medical testimony. I believe one of the jurors got physically ill, may have vomited, and they had to
Yeah, they had a break.
have a little break there from seeing there. So the takeaways: no injuries consistent with a motor vehicle accident. The hypothermia could also be associated with the her hypothermia findings that she relied on were the ulcers in the stomach and the other organ. I'm just having a brain fart on the other organ right now, but could be associated with the heavy drinking, and that normally people that have hypothermia, their stomach lining has more than 50% of it ulcerated. In this case, it's only about 10 to 15, which could be associated with the acid problem and the drinking that he was having, and that's why he was taking the pancreas. Yes, the pancreas. Yeah, I had a brain fart. And then what else? The facial injuries could be that of a punch. And
Noted these.
the other, a punch, or the a glass or any other blunt force object. And she did say to the prosecutor when he started throwing out all of these different things that could have caused it, and she said, well, she said basically, many things are possible, something to that effect. But she's going to look at that at the end of that. I see this as a positive for the defense, and not so much for the prosecutor, because as I said, even in his redirect of her, he got very hostile, in my opinion, towards her, and it was kind of like treating her as a hostile witness in the manner of his questions towards her, very terse. Okay. And let's see what else. Now, going back to the Crim 2, she tried to ask the judge after all of her testimony was over to correct statements she made yesterday, that she wanted to correct the record, but they had a sidebar on it, and the judge said, nope, your testimony's over. And so she couldn't correct her testimony she gave yesterday. Now, I don't know if she was going to try to correct the hair, or she was going to try to correct the reflection of the possible glass that was resting on the bumper. Don't know what.
Today, it was at the very end of her testimony, right?
What? Yes, of the Crim 2, yes.
Let's listen to this.
You attack.
No further. No further questions. Again, thank you for answering my question.
All right, Ms. Hartnett, you are all set.
I wanted to correct something from the record yesterday. I wasn't sure when was appropriate to do that.
Okay. Do you recall which lawyer asked you the question?
Yes, Mr. Leslie asked me the question.
Your Honor, are we going to proceed along with that?
So why don't I see you?
So it was a question that he asked her.
Okay,
If
so
you want-
from years of testimony, folks, when you want to do something like that, you need to do it before your questioning starts. And you have to do it with the lawyer that was asking the questions at the time that you gave the answer that you want to now correct. Okay, so I believe she was on recross when she gave that answer about the reflection and about the hair. It was definitely cross or recross. So it was Mr. Alessi. So when Mr. Alessi started off today, she should have told him up front from the stand, hey, I would like to correct a statement I made yesterday.
Right.
And she didn't do it. She waited for all the testimony to be over. And at that point, the judge, I'm surprised that she ruled this way, but I'm happy she did because it's the right way to rule. Once the testimony is over, that's it. She
It's
had
a-
her shot. She missed it.
It's a wrap. And did you notice that Judge Bev, she was actually ready to entertain her. And I believe that Mr. Alessi schooled her and they went to sidebar. So I just want to listen to it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
she was actually asking the witness, what was it that you wanted to correct? And then he interrupted her. Did anybody catch on to that in the chat? I know there's a lot of people that listen with close ears, but I have my little earpiece in and it really amplifies. And that's what I heard. I heard Judge Bev.
Well, back it up and play it again.
Yeah, she was looking to entertain her. And then
She did look like that. And then the defense jumped up.
I'm going to slow it up. Not to make it sound weird, but I'm going to slow it because I got it sped up. So let's put it at 95 and let's listen to this.
I performed damage analysis on each of those tears on the sleeve.
Right, but you didn't perform an analysis.
Can you rephrase that question, please?
Sure.
Can you rephrase?
God damn it. Excuse me.
No further questions.
Okay.
Again, thank you for answering my question.
All right, Ms. Hartnett, you are all set.
I wanted to correct something from the record yesterday. I wasn't sure when was appropriate to do that.
Okay. Do
Okay.
you recall which lawyer asked you the question?
Yes, Mr. Leslie.
She said, do you recall which lawyer asked you the question?
Hold on. Going back.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do you recall Mr. Brennan asking you just moments ago a question?
I performed damage.
Which lawyer asked you the question?
Yes, Mr. Leslie asked me the question.
Your Honor, are we going to proceed along with that?
So why don't I see you outside?
She went like this sidebar.
My guess is some of her colleagues saw her testimony, maybe even a supervisor, and said something to her, or because the prosecutor who brought her in as a witness is not supposed to be talking to her while she's still sworn under oath and technically on the stand, even though they adjourned for the day yesterday and she came back to go back on the stand today. They're not supposed to be talking to each other in that time period.
Yes. Coral and Dexter, thank you, Coral, for the super chat. And thank you for supporting us, not only here, but on TikTok. She's been sending a bunch of TikTok followers my way by talking about what we talk about each night and bringing it up. So thank you for that.
Yeah. She also probably read her notes and realized, oh shit.
Yeah. I better change this. I better try to make this right because I really effed up. Somebody made a comment in the chat. I don't know who it was because the comment got deleted, but it said, and I want to address this with you, Ed, because I think it's important that we do that because we've done it 100 times, but we'll do it 101. I'm so shocked that this channel, who I watch often, is being so pro-defense. Ed, I'll let you respond to that because I've done it many times. You could do it for the 101th time.
This isn't about pro-defense, pro-prosecution. This is about the truth and justice and ensuring equal justice under the law. Okay, this is about your constitutional rights to have a fair trial. this is about holding law enforcement responsible for doing their job correctly, because we have a tremendous responsibility and we have tremendous power. So we can hold somebody's freedom and even their life in our hands when we conduct these investigations. Okay. You know, would your statement hold if the shoe was on the other foot, if that was your loved one that was on trial for this, and all the things that we're seeing here come to light to you? Would you be happy that your loved one was on trial? I don't particularly care for Karen Reed. Okay. I mean, based on some of the statements in the text and the voicemails and all that stuff, that, it's not my cup of tea, but that's not the point. Okay. That's not the point. The point is, there's an injustice that I see being perpetrated here. I'm seeing people not following standards. I'm seeing all manner of things that are very disturbing to me, that I know from my years in law enforcement and in forensics, over 27 years in forensics, that is not right. Okay. Because that defendant can be any one of us. Okay. Yeah. So I don't get, where you're coming from. It's about the truth, and it's about justice, and it's about equal justice under the law. All right. As I say many, many times, you walked into a district attorney's office in New York City with this case, they throw you out. That you wouldn't get to a grand jury. You wouldn't get an indictment. Okay. There's so many problems with this case. Okay. And let's not even go down the double jeopardy rule, okay, because of what happened in the last trial and the way the judge ran that court, and they didn't write on the form that they acquitted on 2 of the 3 charges. Yet they found out afterwards, but because of a technicality of not having that information written down by the jury, that they acquitted on 2 of the 3 charges. They're pushing ahead, full steam ahead, the prosecutor's office and the judge to re-prosecute this person. Okay. Again, prosecutor's office have a lot of discretion. They can choose not to prosecute in the interest of justice. Okay. So again, what if it was Lowry or Brennan's family that was on trial at the first trial, and that acquittal issue popped up? Do you think they would be happy, or you think they would be pursuing, want their loved ones to go through a second trial, knowing that the jury already acquitted them of 2 of the 3 counts? This is about fairness. All right. This is right and wrong. Okay. I don't live in the gray. I live in black and white, right and wrong. That's where I want to live. Okay.
I think what's really important too, Ed, is when good cops see things that are going bad, and that, like you said, aren't to forensic standards, are not proper protocol, to sit back and say, we're gonna just make like that didn't happen, and we're gonna still side with our brothers and sisters in blue. That makes you just as bad as them. If you can stand up and say, hey, this is not right, this is not how it's supposed to be done, and it takes balls to do that, and it takes people to do this, to make this right. So it can't happen to, like you said, Karen Reed is you, Karen Reed is me, Karen Reed could be any one of us. And if the shoe was on the other foot, you guys would all want a defense team fighting for what's right. And look, if everything was done right here, and all the evidence jived, and all of the statements and testimony were all believable, when you look at the totality of everything here, it's impossible to say that the Commonwealth is going to be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Karen Reed did hit him. And even if she did, based on everything that was done here and all the screw ups by those state lab, by the responding officers, by the evidence, the chain of custody and the lack thereof, the lack of notes, the lack of photographs, the lack of accountability, how can anybody, any taxpaying U.S. American citizen, say to themselves, this is okay? How? Look yourself in the mirror and say, how is this okay? Because if it was your loved one, you damn sure wouldn't be saying it's okay. I can fucking guarantee that.
I have people that I highly respect that disagree with me on this case. Okay, that's fine. State your case respectfully and honestly, and we can agree to disagree. Okay, I practice forensic science. I look at the science. Science doesn't lie. People lie. Sometimes paid scientists lie. Okay, but all right, I've seen that as well. I call them forensic whores. They'll say anything for the dollar. All right, anything that who's ever hiring them wants them to say in trial. All right, I've seen it. I've seen people paid in cash, forensic experts in the hallway outside of a courtroom, and then go inside and lie. Okay, so I was actually there when that happened, and that person would end up getting locked up. Okay, for perjury. But that said, okay, you know, I'm beside myself where how I don't. If you've been watching our show, then you know we call balls and strikes, right? I let the chips fall where they may after looking at it and giving it a good, reasonable look at what's going on, hearing everything, trying to do some research about what's going on, knowing the standards, knowing the protocols, knowing what's normal and what's reasonable versus what's not reasonable. Okay. And then I call the balls and strikes. So that's the way it is. I'm sorry. I will not apologize for being who I am and what I am. And I don't always back the blue because we're human. We make mistakes. We screw up. Sometimes it's a mental error or it's and sometimes it's an error of the heart.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some people choose to do wrong. Some people just made a bad decision
And
with
Karen
no intent.
Right, exactly, Ed. And Karen brings up a good point. Look at Sandra Birchmore. Look at that case. And that's all in that same round robin of what's the word I'm looking for? Evil doings by law enforcement in that generalized area, right? That case, we covered it a bit, Ed, you and I. We did a show on it, and we will continue to do more shows.
You make a mistake. You fall on the sword, admit your mistake, and correct the mistake. Right? And, I can go on and on, never grow weary of doing what is right. It takes less time to explain why you did something right than why you did something wrong, yada, yada, yada. I can go on and on with all of those ad-hadms. But the point is, right or wrong, good or bad, okay? Don't tolerate wrong. Don't tolerate bad. Okay.
And some people will argue, oh, they didn't do this while they were on the job. Yes, we did. If I saw
100%,
if I saw things that weren't going right, I said something. I stepped in. Did it cost me maybe a cushy assignment or a tour that I wanted to be on? Yes, it did. I got. My tour got changed and people blackballed me when I called out something that was not going right at one particular time. I was on patrol at the time, but I didn't care. What I cared about is my own integrity and the way I operate. And if I saw something that went wrong, it only happened to me once. Thank God it only happened once. But when it happened, I said something and I spoke up about it. And that whole blue wall of silence, it came back to bite me in the butt. And I didn't care because I was bounced from a tour that I was doing for standing up for what was right. And I'm not going to get into it here. But at the end of the day, people that say, oh, these guys are retired now, that's why they're doing this. And that's why, no. Ed's got stories. Ed has told stories on our live streams about things that he stepped up to while he was active and while he was retired. And we still do that to this day. If something's wrong, we're not going to sit here and sugarcoat it and present it to you and package it up like it's like the police are all doing this right here. Because if we did that, that would make us just as bad as them.
Well, the only way that this is going to get fixed if people raise their, people know the truth and raise their voices up and say, hey, I live in this community. I'm paying taxes for these services. I'm not going to tolerate this level of incompetency and or corruption. Okay. Right. I want changes made, because again, there's more than one victim here. I want justice for John O'Keefe. I want justice for that community. I want justice for that state. I want justice for our nation because the criminal justice system is also a victim in this now because we're now losing the the trust of the people. And it's not just that community, it's the state and the nation. And internationally, we're looking like fools. Okay. You got people that can get up on a pulpit and a soapbox or whatever, and they preach, but they don't practice what they preach. Right. Everything that I'm commenting on, all the criticisms that I'm making, is because I practice what I preach. Okay. You ask anybody I ever trained if I practice what I preach. Okay. And they'll tell you, I'm just not talking out of my ass and saying, okay, these are the right way to do things, but this is how we're going to do it. No, This is the right way. This is how we do it, without exception and without favor, and regardless of who the victim is. Okay. I
say this all the time. We're cheerleaders for justice. We're not cheerleaders for bad guys. We're not cheerleaders for people in the law, on the law side, whether you're a prosecutor, whether you're a cop, whether you're a sergeant, a lieutenant, it doesn't matter. If you're doing something wrong or you're conducting yourself in the wrong way, we're going to speak about it. And we did this way before this Karen Reed case came up. We did it in numerous cases. We even brought it up during Brian Kohlberg in the infancy stages when we saw Moscow PD go into that 1122 King Road home and start bringing out personal items. We called that out. And I remember that was 2 years ago we did that. And we were like, this is no good. This is a no bueno. We called out when they took down the 1122 King Road residence. So this is not any. Listen, I want to reel this back in.
Oh, wait, one second. Let me just get this out. Stop and Shop bag. Now, there's a photo in this testimony that with the crim too. She's showing the photo with the 6 solo cups in there with red blood. If I was the crime scene tech that showed up in that garage to work that car up, and Lieutenant Leafblower presents this bag to me, I would have looked in it, seen the way it was packaged and what was in it. And this is what I would have said to him. That's nice. Now you run that to the lab. I don't want nothing to do with that. Right? Because you didn't call me. There it is. You didn't call me to come collect this and document where you got it from and photograph it. You took it upon yourself to collect it in out of standard, not to our protocols, in this type of packaging. It's yours. It's not mine. Now you take it to the lab and you bring it up there to them, because I'm not touching this. Now, I've had this happen to me numerous crime scenes where I show up. Like one time we had the bank robbery task force get into this massive shootout. FBI agents, NYPD detectives going after an armed bank robber in a housing projects. They get into this massive running gun battle throughout the project where submachine guns were unloaded, 30-round mags dumped. All right. I go there to process the crime scene, and all of a sudden a sergeant walks up to me and tries to hand me a bag of all these cartridge cases. And I said, "What's that, Sarge?" He goes, "These are the cartridge cases. I picked them up." I said, "Good, they're yours. You go vouch them, and now you handle it. All right, you do all the paperwork on it. I have nothing to do with that. You know that you should have left it for me to come photograph, document, collect, and package, but you picked it up. It's yours now."
Right.
Okay. You handle it. Run it to the lab. I'm not touching it. And I would have done that right there with that bag. I said, "Okay, Lieutenant Leafblower, take it to the lab. It's yours."
Exactly. Let's listen to this anyways, now that we're on it.
Or the paper towel?
Objection, Your Honor. No.
Yes, sustained.
They were separated from
The red cups that you saw?
yes.
And what color is the fluid inside?
I noted there was red-brown stains inside.
Okay. And do you see that white object, the rag or the paper towel?
Objection, Your Honor. No.
Yes, sustained.
Well,
Of course, sustained.
you were asked about, you can take that down. You were asked about who had custody of items. You only have custody of items once you receive them, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, hold on a second. Now, remember, folks, she's there on the February 1st, okay, at that garage. They confiscated or collected improperly John O'Keefe's clothing from the hospital floor, okay? And then they brought it back to the district attorney's office, where they put some craft paper down on the floor, not on top of a table, but on a floor, and laid out the individual items of clothing to dry. Now, I don't know when they did that if they kept it commingled, because one bag or from the hospital contained the t-shirt and the hoodie, and the other bag from the hospital contained the pants and the underwear. And then I don't know where the sneaker was, if it was in a separate bag but they laid the clothing down on paper to dry out. And it stayed there on the floor in an unsecured location that wasn't monitored by surveillance cameras for 6 days. Okay. Not once. And there was a crime scene. There was a CSS at the hospital who took photographs, allegedly, of the clothing and everything. Okay. I don't know why. I don't know how the CSS operates and what their protocols and procedures are, but I don't know why they didn't package up that clothing the correct way and and take responsibility for it and bring it back to the laboratory. But they didn't do it. So they didn't, and we had a show about this, how to package this clothing. So then after the clothing allegedly dry, now remember, there's still trace transfer evidence on that clothing, and it's being put in bags, taken out of bags, putting on the floor, putting back in bags, and then shipped to the laboratory. So who knows how much trace transfer evidence got lost? Who knows what the temperature was inside of that room, and whether or not any evidence got destroyed that may have been on the clothing. Okay. We'll never know now, because nothing was done to the proper forensic standards. And that's why I keep complaining. Doesn't matter who the victim is, or who the defendant is, rather. Doesn't matter. Okay. Right is right and wrong is wrong. And this is wrong. I don't know how you could proceed further with this prosecution. No chain of custody. The evidence was all screwed up. No documentation, no sketches, no measurements where anything was found.
Yeah.
How do you even know that those last couple of trips to the Albert's house, where Proctor and Sergeant Uri said they recovered evidence, was even there or recovered there? How do we even know? There's no documentation.
They didn't document anything, and neither did the state police. We listened to Sergeant Yuri Buchanan testify that he took no reports. He didn't sign reports. As last time I checked, the supervisor is supposed to supervise the case detectives, and the sergeant is supposed to sign off on the reports. How come the prosecution or the defense didn't have any reports signed off by Yuri Buchanan? Because he didn't do nobody did anything. Like, everything was, according to him, was done by memory. And we would take our little notes, and then 500 and something days later, they would stick in a report here and there. 400 days later, a report. 300 days later. When I heard that alone broke my heart. It broke my heart for John O'Keefe. It broke my heart for this case.
And in my discipline, in crime scene investigation, in the forensic community is abuzz with all kinds of talk about this case and how screwed up everything is. You can go to LinkedIn, you can go to any number of social media, you can go to the forensic associations and see what people in the forensic community are actually saying about this case and how appalled we professionals are. Now, I said this before, for those of you who've been here a long time on our show, I'm one of those people who feel that crime scene investigators should be licensed by the state to practice what we do. Okay. This way, you are licensed by the state. There's a governing body. There's a disciplinary body. Okay. And you have to maintain your certifications, which I do. I have plenty of certifications and I have to maintain them, which requires continuing education. Okay. So this way we can try to stop stuff like this from happening.
It's insane. Ed, I wanted to go to the super chats. And everything that you say, I wholeheartedly agree with. And I think our chat overwhelmingly agrees with it. But we definitely needed to address the situation, not amongst our community here, because our community basically supports us. But there's just some mixed messages that people are not understanding where we're coming from. Even some of our own people who have been following us for a while. But some of our former colleagues and former friends, they don't see this for what it is, and that's on them. And I don't hold any ill will towards them, but at the end of the day, I have to put my head down at night and sleep at night. And to call this anything other than what we're calling it is, I don't know the lens that you're seeing this through. So let's get to the chats, super chats, and then we'll get to the live chat. So once we're done with these super chats, which will take quick, there's probably about 30 or so of them. I'll try to run through them quick. Buckle up. Edmund, thank you for the 2. Let's do this. Case dismissed. Thunder Horse, thank you so much for being here. Roddy has fallen officer day. Rest in peace. Yeah, it's law enforcement Memorial Week down in DC, and I saw Jonathan Diller's widow is down there with her son, a little baby boy, and they're down there, and it's heartbreaking to see the men and women who across our nation gave their lives protecting our freedoms. And we gotta think about the lost brothers and sisters and the ones who continue to serve. Redondo Beach, thank you for the 2. You need to know you have my rest, my faith in all. You have rest, my faith in officers. Thank you for that. Zach, thank you for the 20. Is Brennan switching gears on using Aruba, going with the ME testimony after reports to the contrary, and changing the timeline, all due to the panic after Yuri Buchanan's disastrous testimony? His whole case strategy appears to be changing. Everything that they're doing is coming back to missteps, bad practices. And Ed just talked about everything here.
Look, we talk about it time and time again, garbage in, garbage out. So if you got a garbage case presented to you and now you're presenting a garbage case to the jury, it's still garbage. You can put all the lipstick on it you want. It's still garbage.
Yeah. Yep. And Mr. Burt Wayne, thank you for the 2. Where's the frostbite? Question mark. Nowhere. Not out there. 5 hours. Nowhere. He's got no frostbite at being out for 5 hours. That came up today, and I'm, we brought it out here tonight. We talked about it, and it's today was not a good day for the Commonwealth, and neither was yesterday, and neither was the day before that. Laura, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Back again. The Goodmans, thank you for gifting a membership. Appreciate that. Best gun losing detective sends in 5. Can somebody tell this mob lawyer that the 6th Amendment doesn't apply to the Commonwealth?
And you know what doesn't also apply in the Commonwealth, especially in the town of Canton? The laws of physics do not apply.
Yeah.
It's like my cousin Vinny. Do the laws of physics not apply in your kitchen?
Yeah, exactly. To all the grit-eating community, Mr. Burt Wayne again, 5. If an individual will lie face down on the grass for 5 or 6 hours, exposed skin can develop frostbite within 10 to 15 minutes at wind chills of -20 or lower. If the gloves don't fit, you must acquit, right? Johnny Cochran. If the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit.
He cross-examined me.
Yeah, Redondo Beast, 199. Obsessy with Alessi.
Okay.
Mr. Burt Wayne throwing his wallet at us. That's based on recorded weather data from the day.
He put it on the screen for the medical examiner today, the weather conditions, and talked about the wind chill factor and how that could affect the expediting of frostbite.
Yeah. I could find that in a minute, but I want to bounce through these real quick. One Big Doodle, thank you for the 2. Thanks, guys, for all you do. Well, thank you. As Ed says, we appreciate you. Abby and Rosie's mom, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. I'm Kara, not Chloe. David Reese, thank you for the 10. I fell at my head and hit my head on a packed Snow White skiing, and I didn't suffer skull fractures or a 2-inch laceration. There's no way frozen ground caused that. Yeah. What do you think, Ed?
Well, I've seen, that knockout game that it's all over, happening all over the city where people just come up and cold cock you, blindside you, and bam, then you fall down and hit your head on a concrete surface, split your head open, create all kinds of, hematomas and so forth, and you end up dying.
Yeah, brain bleeds are,
Yeah.
look, my uncle, he slipped on ice going into the, card store where he gets his newspaper every morning. Fell and hit his head, and he died. He was brain dead.
Right. And how many ski accidents do we know of? Well, Sonny Bono, right? He crashed into a tree, hit his head, boom. Also, Liam Neeson's wife. Then, forget it. Again.
So many people. Glam Suze, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Plexiglass evidence box. I gotta love these names. Thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Plexiglass evidence box. Jack, thank you for the 5. Thank you for the coverage. Ron and Ed, I'm glad a certain unscrupulous jagaloon named Gary Gray isn't attempting to cover this case. He's referring to Gray Hughes. You guys are true experts. Thank you, Jack. We appreciate your support here. Britt, $5. Question: how was his blood in the snow if he were there before the snow?
Right, and they were drops, and they were a series of 6 drops that the Lieutenant Leafblower picked up in the red Solo cups and put into the Stop and Shop bag, the Stop and Shop evidence bag. Okay,
Keeps that next to his side when we do these lives. Plexiglass evidence box, another 2. No impact site. Dr. Scordi-Bello, case closed.
And look at the blood on the front of his clothing. Look on John O'Keefe's hoodie. Look at the blood. Where's it going? Straight down the center. If he was lying down face up and he's bleeding from his mouth, it's going to come down the sides of his face, maybe hit his shoulders, and maybe the back will have some hood. Now, they didn't get into it in the testimony here. I'm not sure why, because of the autopsy report says the how much blood in volume was lost is missing. Okay, but they didn't bring that up here because I don't know why, but based upon the amount of blood that was out on that snow in that front yard, didn't seem to match what was lost. So where is it?
Yeah. Serena, thank you for becoming a member. Coral and Dexter, thank you, DutyRon and Ed. Well, we appreciate you. Thank you. Holly from Canada, good to see you, and thank you for becoming a member today.
I just remembered about the blood and, gravity, you're standing up, it's going straight down out of your mouth and nose, but the laws of physics don't apply in Canton.
It doesn't. Have you ever seen this many sidebars in a trial? Thank you for all you do. I think there was more in the first, but
in 399 trials, no.
Never. Coral and Dexter, thank you for being a member for over 8 months. Wow, 8 months. It went by quick. Yeah. Time flies when you're having fun, right? Buckle up. Edmund again coming in with a 5. If John O'Keefe's head injuries caused by frozen ground, where's all the blood? How much blood was in his body at the autopsy? Shouldn't it still be present? Please help, Ed. How much blood did John O'Keefe lose? Do you know?
I remember somebody about 3 liters.
How much blood is in the body?
I can't remember off the top of my head. You have to ask. I'll get it.
Close to that. I think it's close to that. So
no.
Cindy sends in $10. Ed's Googling it right now. I'm sure people in the chat are already answering it because they're like, Bees on Mars, thank you for the 5. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Martin Luther King.
5 liters.
5 liters. So 3 is close to being.
I don't think it's liters. I think it's 3 pints.
3 pints.
Something. I remember 3.
We can't ignore the injustice in this trial. Amen to that. Bees on Mars. Amen to that. Schmitty is back again, throwing her pocketbook and her purse at us. She sends a 5. It's come back to bite me too. Worth it. Nothing can take away the integrity it takes and the peace one feels having spoken up.
So the average human has 5 liters or 1.3 gallons of blood.
There you have it. How much did O'Keefe lose?
I remember 3, but I'm not sure if it's 3 pints. I'm not sure what it is. I have to look. I got to go find a report and look at it again.
Okay, we'll get back to you guys on it. Melissa said Hendrick sends $10 and says, for your passion, character, and integrity, we nurses do the same. We stand up to advocate for, and protect. You are 100% the real deal. thank you for what you've done in your past and what you continue to do. And thank you for the support. Nurses' jobs are difficult at best. My niece is a nurse in the OR at a heart hospital, and you guys and girls who do the nursing job, do the nursing career, you guys are angels, and we rely on you as cops to help save us.
Yeah, the first receivers, right?
Yeah. Well, the paramedics and the first, the people on the ambulance keep us alive to get us to the hospital, and we like you say, the nurses, they're our angels. So
when I was in the crime scene unit, I had to visit a lot of hospitals in my career. If the victim went to a hospital, sometimes after the scene, I would rush to the hospital, or sometimes before the scene, I would rush to the hospital if the victim went to the hospital, and I gather up that stuff so it didn't get destroyed, document it, package it, get it all taken care of. And so I got to know a lot of the nurses, a lot of the ER docs, and became friends with all the these people in the 5 boroughs, in the entire 5 boroughs. And it was a pleasure working with you all. I mean, we all share a pretty morbid sense of humor.
Oh yeah, you gotta have it if you do the job
as a defense mechanism. And it was like, certain hospitals, it's like when I came in, and you recognize people, and it's like I could have had a mug with my name on it there for coffee, and Ed's here, get him his coffee cup.
Glamasuz sends in the $5. Do you think that someone might have kept insurance in the event that they were thrown under the bus? I haven't seen it happen. I'm not sure what she's referring to. Maybe do you think that someone might have kept insurance in the event that they were thrown under the bus? I haven't seen it.
You mean like Proctor?
Yeah, I don't know, because she's not specifying, but we have to assume that she's talking about some of these unscrupulous jagaloons. Sarcasm, thank you for the 5. Your integrity, character, and honesty and knowledge is why we're here and why we keep coming back. Well, thank you. Well, I mean, look, Ed Wallace, with the amount of knowledge that he has as it pertains to these cases and the forensics and the DNA and everything that he has, is really what steps this channel up a notch above everyone else. So what do you got?
In my profession, all you have is your integrity and your reputation. In forensics, lose either one of them and you're done.
Done. Yeah.
Done.
You'll
And
never lose that, Ed.
for those people, all these young kids out there that are going into forensics and crime scene investigation, all that, they're getting their bachelor's and master's degrees and maybe even PhDs and so forth. And all it takes is one momentary loss of your integrity, your reputation, and then your degree is worthless.
You can't fix it. Once it's tainted, you can't fix it. Miss Holmes 66, $5. How can the feds not find any wrongdoing by the Commonwealth and not step in into this persecution and allow Karen to go through all this BS, even if she gets acquitted? Well, they can't step in until it's over. I believe that they are in the background investigating and looking into all of this bullshit that's gone on and that continues to go on. But we're seeing it all unfold right before our very eyes. So it's all happening now. I think we're almost done. Ditto 75 sends in a 2. You guys remind me of Serpico. Thank you for your show. Thank you, Ditto. I appreciate it. Darlene Mann sends in some Canadian cash. Is there a tariff that we have to pay on that? No. Is there an explanation why the back of the orange shirt seems to have more blood on it compared to the back of the hoodie?
I don't know.
Well, if the shirt's underneath, that's the next thing that's next to his body, the T-shirt. And then the hoodie is, he's layered.
Well, you got that injury in the back of the head, right? So that injury in the back of the head is if the person is standing erect or in some kind of erect position, the blood, due to gravity, will flow down the back. Okay. And he does have some superficial wounds or in the front of his face from possible
right eye, caught over the right eye.
Right. And there was some blood in the nose and there was some blood in the mouth. It could be associated with an injury to the nose and so forth. But yeah.
Bewitching, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. I'm trying to run through these. Emily, thank you for being here for over 13 months. Love my cousin Vinny and love you both. Well, we love you right back.
Hey, Emily, this is for you. Does the defense's case hold water?
Water. No, it doesn't.
Are you sure?
Yes, I am. All
Are
right.
you? I'm positive.
Ed, stop it.
Okay.
Kamala Norris, that was great. Thank you for the 5. Canton PD and the state troopers don't have body cams, don't record or video interviews that they take, and they take notes. And when asked for notes, oh, I don't have my notes. Yeah, it's all bullshit. This is not how investigations go. This is not how you would see an investigation as it pertains to a fallen off-duty police officer. And
So-
you don't see this in any of the cases. It's just
Yeah. So we have a lot of people in the chat saying 3 liters or blood was lost. And if that's the case, if it's not 3 pints and 3 liters, that's a lot of blood.
Yeah. Where is it? Where we don't see it. There's no pictures. Only pictures and video that we have is the leaf blower. Jem, thank you for the $20. Good to see you, DutyRon. What are y'all's thoughts on Procter and Buchanan's investigation and failure to consider the people at the party and John's injuries?
I think we made ourselves pretty clear.
We were very clear about it, but failure to interview anybody at the party, the homeowners, the neighbors, the 2 neighbors here, the neighbors across the street. One of them happens to be the chief of detectives, a lieutenant at the time. Failure for him to come out and start taking charge, right, Ed? Ed, tell me if I'm going nuts here, but any chief of detectives in any department, I don't care if you have 2 members or 500 or 40,000 like what we have, any chief of detectives, whether your rank is a lieutenant, sergeant, inspector, captain, I don't give a shit what your rank is. You have a homicide that occurs on the front lawn of your neighbor directly across the street from you. Your ass is putting your robe on and you're coming outside and you're like, all right, set up a perimeter here. I'm calling my best guys in. That shit didn't happen.
No, it didn't. But I'm a little uneasy with that because, this is your neighbor across the street. So there may be, this conflict of interest there. And the neighbor across the street where this all happened is a cop too. So, but he could have got on the horn and say, hey, get the troops down here. Let's go.
Send the cavalry. And he didn't do it. And why didn't any of these people? I asked this to our chat. Why didn't any of these people go to the funeral of John O'Keefe? None of them did.
Officer DeBecky, it's not bad boys anymore. It's bag boys.
We changed it. Here it is. Ready for bag boys? Ready?
Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you?
All right. Lori G, thank you for the 2. If two within shoes don't fit, you must have quit. If 2 within shoes don't fit, you must have quit. There we go. We're having fun. Murfetts, thank you for the 10. Thank you for standing up for truth. It's not always easy. It's easy for us. I mean, we don't even have to think twice about it. Bewitching Butte, thank you for the 5. The gash looks straight up like someone took a weight and hit him on the back of the head. Josh H, thank you for the 5. Only thing I want to say is I don't know if Karen Reed is guilty, but the 2 trials to date, I haven't seen the evidence to convict. I haven't seen the evidence to convict a DUI. He hasn't even seen the evidence to convict a DUI.
We got the blood alcohol level of
it's enough, right?
John O'Keefe today, and he was
he was
way over the legal limit.
Right.
That's another thing about this community and all these people involved. They drink way too much.
Mm-hmm. There are
And that's never good.
$5 from Schmitty again. Yeah, everyone's drinking and everyone's driving. There are 2.11 pints in 1 liter roundabout. When I donate blood, I donate 1 pint in less than 4 minutes and feel fine. Live in black and white, Ed. Moonlight View, thank you for a member for over 54 months. Hold my water. Does it hold my water? Does it hold water? The trial channel.
No.
There's the trial channel again. We got to start watching the trial channel. Ed, they maybe we should start using clips from the trial channel if they give us permission. They do everything in a condensed form. It's pretty cool. Love the show and the chat. Thanks for the great insight, Ron and Ed. Thank you. Thank you, trial channel. Island Girl, ex-Island Girl, thank you for the 2. I think we're all caught up. Let's go to the live chat and then end this at 10 minutes. That's it. 2 hours. I got to go because I got to go to bed.
I got to pay.
Lieutenant Dan. All right. If you're not yet subscribed, consider subscribing. Hit the thumbs up while we're here. Everybody, please. We don't ask for much. We ask you, Ed and I kindly ask you guys to hit the thumbs up, share the video, leave us a comment. We love to engage. I got to be honest with you. The comments have been overwhelming. I haven't been able to keep up with them, but I'm going to get to them. Like I answered a comment this morning from 5 months ago. I missed one on a video from 5 months ago and I answered it. And I think the person thought I was crazy. It's like, DutyRon, 5 months have passed. You're answering this? I said, better late than never. Lori G sends in 2 and she says, if 2 right shoes, wait a minute. We just did that. Didn't we just do that? She did it again.
Yes.
It's a new one. If 2 right shoes don't fit, you must have quit.
Yes. And the miracle hair and the miracle piece of glass on the vehicle. You know, the average human loses 75 head hairs a day. Okay. Right. Ron is above average. So I guess it's good to be above average in something.
BN Trouble 31 says, thank you, everyone. Hey, no, thank you. We appreciate you, BN 31. And thank you for hanging out here with us throughout this whole 2 hours. That's awfully cool of you. So thank you. The trial channel says the videos are free to use, Ron. It would be an honor. Well, I'm going to look into that. I'm a man of my word. Ed and I are going to take a look at the trial channel, and maybe we could use some of the clips for our upcoming. We're going to continue to follow this. We're going to continue to cover it. You know, some of the days when, if it's a light day in the Karen Reed trial, we may take a break and then condense it into 2 days, because I got to be honest with you, doing these 2-hour streams plus every night. I don't know about you, Ed. I know we enjoy doing this, but man, I got it at 6 o'clock in the morning. My alarm clock starts buzzing off, and I'm like, oh man, I'm tired. So it is what it is. Let's go to the chat. Hashtag Ed, hashtag DutyRon. We still got 8 minutes. We got 8 minutes. It's better than 7 minutes. So let's make the best of this 8 minutes. Hashtag Ed, hashtag Ron. Look, Angela, she knows me. It's past your bedtime. I love you. Dr. John is in the chat. He says somewhere the Irish mob is attached. You think? I wouldn't be surprised. Nothing would surprise me, Ed. I tell you, you know, I love Boston. I go to catch Boston Red Sox games a lot, and
no, I have good friends up there. You know, but right now some of them are not too happy with me.
Too bad. I'm not going to take a vacation in Canton anytime soon. So I'll tell you that right now. ZZ the boxing cat says, Ronald, get to bed. He's calling me by my official name. Ronald, get to bed. Ed, what are we doing on Saturday? We're going for pizza?
Yes, we are.
We can't tell anybody where we're going for pizza. It's a secret, but we're going for pizza, and we're going to catch up. We're going to catch up on a lot of stuff.
What? We don't put ketchup on pizza.
We're going to catch up.
Okay.
We're not going to use ketchup on pizza, and we don't put pineapple
on pizza. No self-respecting Italian eats pineapple pizza.
Oh, hell no.
You want that shit? Go to Hawaii.
Ooh. Oh, Ed. Inside Your Bones says, true, Ron. That's commitment. Better late than never. Exactly. I'm committed to our live chatters and our people who leave us comments, and I will get to as many humanly as possible. So if if the live stream ends, because we only got 6 more minutes, if it ends, it's a great way to continue the conversation. I know this man right next to me here, my brother, my partner, Ed Wallace, is he's a machine. He goes at those comments with vim and vigor. He is, Schmitty, she just unfolded our place where we're going. Umberto's in New Hyde Park. Everybody go and meet us there on Saturday. No, don't go there. Don't go there. Ed, you got enough cash to buy pizza for everybody?
Sure do.
Hashtag Ed says, Brown Eye Girl, love you sharing your knowledge.
You, my brown-eyed girl, do you remember when we used to sing?
All right, that's it. Let's end this. We're just getting a little crazy. 2 hours. I think we did it. No other questions are coming in. Somebody just said we're rock stars. How after that singing? I don't think Christina sent that message while we were singing, because there's no way she would have said we're rock stars, because we just heard a bunch of people's ears just now. Somebody said I took 2 classes on forensic science, on ethics.
On ethics. Yes, ethics and forensics. That's it. Learn it, live it, love it.
Miss Gonzalez. Yes, thank you, Elena. Thank you for being here. A subscriber and a friend. She's been around for a long time, so thank you for that. S Dubs is talking to Kitty KU. Nancy Gould says, thank you for your input, guys. Appreciate it. Hey, if you like this type of, chit chat at the end of the shows, I know some people like, let's just get back to the nitty gritty. There's only so much of this that we could talk about. And I think it's healthy for us to talk to you guys a little bit at the end to kind of de-stress and talk about normal things and talk about regular stuff and have some laughs. But Nina Marquez is bringing us back in. She's reeling us back in. And Nina says, why no blood on the hat? That Thin Blue Line BPD hat that he was wearing. Why?
Maybe got knocked off before all of that occurred. Can I just highlight something?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Julie,
are you in Hawaii? Are you? Aloha from your Howley friend in New York City. Okay. The next time I'm at my place in Kona, maybe we could. I don't know if you're from Oahu or where you're from, but I love Hawaii.
Nice. And she loves our tunes. Look at that. Wait. She loves it. She loves the tunes. Glamis News says, Ed and Ron, come up to Massachusetts and help clean the stables. I know a guy who will protect you. We pack wherever we go, and we can.
It didn't work out too well for the last guy that was cleaning the stables. I saw that movie. Envino Veritas, thank you so much. Thank you for keeping us informed. Bless you both. Have a good evening. Good night. Kristen W says it's good to unwind. Absolutely. All right, that's it. 158. I think we held true. Jay-Z says we love your channel. Thank you. Thank you so much. A lot of people are sending us pleasantries. Lori G says, hashtag Ed, why no taillights stuck in John O'Keefe's head? Why nothing in it? Yeah. Nothing in the write-up.
Nothing.
Nothing in the clothes.
Yeah, no damage to his lower part of his torso from a vehicle strike.
Listen, if he would have got hit, like if you saw that, did you see the video that we posted from our friend? Okay, the experiment he did with that exact tail light on driving at 25 miles an hour and hitting the arm, the right arm with the skeleton structure in it, several compound fracture in the elbow, several breaks in the arm. Now, attach that to your shoulder. right? And what you're going to get is you're going to get your shoulder's going to get damaged. You're going to have ligament damage. You're going to have cartilage damage. You're going to have broken ribs, which they did have in this case too, broken ribs. But the pathologist said it was from performing CPR, and also because they put that mechanical CPR machine on him, doing like 100 reps or whatever it was. But at the end of the day, there was like 3,000 compressions by this machine on John O'Keefe, and they're I'm just beside myself with all of this stuff. Anywho,
all right, let's
I'm tired.
Let's end it, Ed. I think it's all good. It's going to be an episode. Jenny D, thank you. Love you guys. All right. Good night, guys. As I really like to keep this simple, but at the end of the day, this is about John O'Keefe. This is not about, and it's about justice. You know, it's not just about John O'Keefe. It's about getting justice for not only him, his family, his loved ones, and for the people of Canton, for the people of the Boston area and surrounding areas. And we say this nightly. We don't know if that's going to ever happen, but we send strength, prayers, and positive vibes to the O'Keefe family, to the Reed family. All of them are going through it. You see them on separate sides of the courtroom. They're each fighting for justice for their loved ones, right? It's a different kind of thing, but they're each fighting for it. But let's keep John in our in the forefront, and let's play this. I do it each night.
About this, we want to take a moment to remember John O'Keefe. This is the victim in this case. The Braintree native was a Boston police officer. There you see him in uniform. He was the legal guardian of his niece and nephew after the children lost both of their parents to illness. That was his sister and brother-in-law. You're watching Canton Confidential.
So there you have it. Ed, I know you have something to say at the end of all these things.
Okay. Thank you, folks. Mahalo, gracias, grazie, shukram. Thank you for being here with us. You know, you can get your true crime fix anywhere you like on the internet, on YouTube and so forth, but it's an honor for you to share these last 2 hours with us. It's an honor for me, rather, to share with you these last 2 hours. And I thank you for being here. So I always say this at the end of our shows, all right? Always stay safe, stay prepared, and watch your six.
Amen, Ed. And we'll leave with this image of police officer John O'Keefe. Good night, everybody from New York. We'll see you tomorrow.